Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. More Cody Up touchdowns, please.
Yep.
Specifically from Keaton Slovis. We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I am Spencer Linton, teamed up with Jerem Jordan. Joining us now, and I mentioned this before we went to break, he is a recruiting expert to the max, specifically for BYU football. He is Jeff Hansen, Cougar Sports Insider. Jeff, we're all wondering right now, can BYU compete in the Big 12 as currently constituted with their recruiting class? So with that very simple question, I welcome you to the show and ask you, is BYU fit to compete in the Big 12 right now from a recruiting standpoint?
The short answer is yes, right? I mean, when you look at what BYU's done over decades, really, specifically last year, we can talk about the specifics, but over decades, BYU always has top-end players. So can they compete on a week-to-week basis? Absolutely. The team is ready to compete on a week-to-week basis. Can they compete for championships? And when you look at like a 12-game schedule, say, hey, they're going to compete for the top spot in the Big 12? I don't think they're there yet, but I think they can be. There's enough talent in BYU's recruiting pool that they certainly can compete in the future. I think BYU's talented enough, and they've proven it. They've beaten Oklahoma. They've beaten Texas. I think they're talented enough to compete with anybody in the Big 12 on an individual game basis. It's the 12-game stretch and the depth that things start to get a little bit more dicey.
Yeah, one-offs are one thing. A 9-game slate where you need to go probably 8-1 to make that title game is certainly different. So we'll break down the signing class that BYU had in a moment. But how many more dudes of the ilk of Jackson Bowers and Sialia Sarah and LJ Martin does BYU need to get to that level, in your opinion?
You know, it's really kind of interesting to think about that if BYU adds one or two guys like that per recruiting class, they're really going to be up at the top tier of the Big 12. So
Jeff,
take away
that's
Texas,
it? One or two more?
It's not much. Take away Texas, take away Oklahoma, right? They're leaving the conference. Most schools in the Big 12 are signing 2, maybe 3 4-star guys in a class. So if BYU can get to 3 or 4 guys consistently, they're going to have the top-end talent that the rest of the conference has. I mean, obviously there's year in and year out fluctuations where TCU has a great year. They're going to have a great recruiting class this year. But by and large, BYU would be able to compete if they get 3 or 4 4-stars a class. It's the rest of the class that really has to improve, and BYU can do that, but they need to improve, I guess, the floor of their recruiting, maybe more so than they need to improve the ceiling of their recruiting.
Jeff Hansen, Cougar Sports Insider, with us on BYU Sports Nation. Jeff, every recruiting class has a brand or a trademark, something that clearly the coaching staff was after. So what's the trademark or the brand of this specific recruiting class for BYU?
Yeah, my answer is going to be probably not what you're expecting, Spencer, but I think discipline. So when I look at the recruiting class this year, they only signed, I think, 15, 16 high school guys on scholarships. And that's not something that BYU has done traditionally. Even when the scholarship crunch is pretty crazy, they tend to go to 20, 25 guys in a class and almost fill up that recruiting class. Now, because of the emergence of the transfer portal and things like that, BYU didn't have to maybe throw those Hail Marys out at the end of the recruiting cycle and fill in the bottom of their class, those remaining 5-10 scholarships, with guys that are kind of, like, do you really want to bring them in on scholarship or not? They were disciplined. They said, hey, we are going to go get these guys. They identified guys that they felt were scholarship players that could compete in the Big 12, and they didn't compromise on their evaluations. They got who they got. They missed the guys that they missed. And the holes they will go and fill by way of the transfer portal or other ways. And that's just not something we've seen BYU do in the past. They've always kind of filled out the class with those Hail Marys at the end. Sometimes they hit, right? That's how Brady Christensen got to BYU. But sometimes they don't. More often than not, those Hail Marys fall incomplete. So it was kind of interesting to see BYU stay super disciplined in their evaluations and how they fill out their recruiting class.
Yeah, even on the field, we don't talk about the Hail Marys that missed. 2013 against Utah. We don't talk about the one that didn't get to Mitch Matthews that he probably was held on or whatever, but we remember. With this last class, who jumps in and competes right away for playing time, in your opinion?
Sialia Sarah. I mean, that's my guy. He was such a standout at Timpview High School. I got to watch him play a ton. at TimpView doing some of the high school coverage that we do. And it's more than just the way he plays. I mean, he kind of looks like a poor man's Noah Sewell did at Oregon this year. I mean, Ciale has that talent, can get there, but Noah Sewell looks like a defensive tackle, but runs like a linebacker, right? I mean, he plays at 265. Ciale's kind of built in that same mold, that he's a big dude, but he's fast enough that he can play middle linebacker. And I look at what Jay Hill wants to do in this defensive scheme. I'm an Ogden guy. I've watched a lot of Weber State football over the last few years. Ciale Acera is the kind of guy who's going to thrive in that defense. So how quickly can he get up to speed? He's got the physical tools to step in right away. It really is going to come down to the mental side and how prepared he is come game day. I think he can get there. He's got that kind of work ethic. I think he can compete very early on in his career.
Jeff Hansen of Cougar Sports Insider. He is a recruiting expert. I think a lot of fans, Jeff, look at BYU's number 65 ranking on 24/7 Sports and think, okay, that's like basically middle of the pack. But you've been very outspoken about, no. This is like the highest composite score that BYU has ever put together in a recruiting class. There's a disconnect there. So in layman's terms, can you simply explain why you shouldn't look solely at the 65 and that the composite rating actually may matter more?
Yeah, I've got to do layman's terms because I don't understand all the really complex stuff. But really, the team rankings, there's an aggregate score that is all put together, and quantity matters in that aggregate score. And then also the top end talent matters. So I think BYU is at 65 right now in the team rankings. If they would have signed just one additional player, let's take another TimpView guy. Let's take Spencer Fano, right? A guy that we all know. If BYU would have signed Spencer Fano, they would have gone from 65 up to the low 50s, 51, 52. I mean, that's how tight it is once you get into the 30s to 60s, is one big-time player can make a difference. Now, in the past, when BYU's had higher classes, it's because they're filling out their class with a lot of lower-rated players that bring that aggregate score up. So the aggregate ranking doesn't tell the whole story. You really have to get into the nuance of the class and look at some of the individuals and their specific rating. And in that respect, BYU's average star rating on a per recruit level, this is the best that they've ever had. This is better than that, the infamous 2010 class with Jake Heaps and Ross Oppo and Bronson Kafusi, all those guys. This is a higher rated class on a per recruit level than that class was. Now, there's only 16 guys, right? We've talked about that. They were really disciplined. So those few numbers in the class, that's going to hold down their aggregate team score when an Alabama is signing 20 or 25 guys, right? I mean, even Alabama's a bad example, but when Utah is signing 20 guys, it's going to boost up their rating a little bit more. If BYU was able to sign just one or two of those 4 or 5 star guys that they were chasing, then that recruiting class looks entirely different. If they were going to fill out the class with a bunch of low 3-star guys and go from 16 to 24, 25 guys, they're looking at a low 50s, mid 40s type recruiting class too.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, riddle me this. So certainly in football, there's 85 scholarships. It's like 125 dudes on the roster. In men's basketball, BYU didn't even sign a high school kid in November. It's Jake Wallin coming back from a mission next year. The transfer portal is where it's at. Will football get to that point where there are very few kids out of high school and it's mostly transfer portal?
I've thought about this a lot, and I think that I think the short answer is yes, that it will be similar. It's never going to be able to be the same where a school doesn't sign anybody, right? But I think that a 15 high school kid recruiting class is probably going to become more normal. The way that I look at how, Justin Anderson and Kalani Sitake, how they have to manage this roster now, is it's a lot closer to like a professional team, right? You're building a roster for 2023. You would love to sign a guy and hope that you're going to be able to develop him for 2 or 3 years and then he makes an impact in 2026. But because of the transfer portal, that's just not realistic anymore. I don't think you can bank on that the way that you used to. So the way that rosters have to be constructed is it's a 1-year thing, and then anything above that 1 year is an additive bonus, right? It's gravy on top. And I think if that becomes kind of the mindset, or at least maybe more of the mindset, then yeah, you're going to see a lot more dependence on the transfer portal because that's what's going to help you win next year. then you'll figure out 2024 when 2024 comes along. And I think that's going to be very normal for every team, not just BYU, going into the future.
How will missionaries factor into that timeline and BYU's recruiting in the future? Because obviously BYU's biggest advantage is LDS kids who want to go on a mission, who want to be at BYU.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, and I'm glad you said that, because that is BYU's biggest advantage, right? People talk about the honor code and the limitations that BYU has in the recruiting trail. I've always kind of argued differently, right? The honor code allows BYU to get into doors that they probably shouldn't be getting into when you look at the state of college football in the past, right? I mean, you take a guy like a Kyle Van Noy or a Fred Warner, without BYU and the unique atmosphere that BYU has, I don't know that those guys even open the door. If BYU is just a regular school and they're just an independent school, I don't think they even listen to BYU when they call. So that honor code, it helps BYU as much as it ever hurts BYU. And as a result, that missionary pipeline is going to be huge in the future. It's going to continue to be huge. I think you look at a guy like Logan Fano, who just transferred to Utah. That's kind of the risk, right? BYU was still able to sign him out of high school. They were still able to get him enrolled, but it was still kind of a one-year clock once he got on campus. Once he decided it wasn't for him, he left, right? So it's the same that it would be for a high school kid, but I do think that because of missions and BYU and kind of the unique atmosphere that BYU is able to offer, the missionary program will still be a big part of it, but it kind of limits BYU's timeline on how fast you can get a missionary on the field in the future, because they'll transfer after they get home if they're not playing like they think they should.
Fantastic and thought-provoking insight from Jeff Hansen. You can follow him on Twitter at Rakutu10. I said that right?
You did. You did. Well done.
All right, Jeff, we appreciate the time.
Thanks, Jeff.
We know you'll be busy watching the transfer portal, so don't get too comfortable. We'll probably call again and want to do a post-spring transfer portal conversation as well.
Love it. Thanks, guys.